Hey guys, it's Ben, and I'm here to bring you guys the Pick Ems for IBL Week 1. Now, there's supposed to be a team of us here, as I'm normally joined by Ojama and EasyBake, but we've had a lot of scheduling issues, so I'm just going to be recording this one by myself. So, let's hop right into this. Our first matchup, we've got ShadyMexicann and the Buffalo Drills versus Ultra Player 26 and the New York Metagross. The analysts are pretty split on this matchup, but I went with Shady because I feel like he has the matchup, largely in part due to the fact that he has Swellow. I do not see a switch in to a well-played Swellow. I feel like physical or special would have worked great in the matchup, but if he runs physical, he really can't touch Klefki, which can get up spikes, screens, he can do a lot of stuff for free. If he runs special Swellow, he can just kind of nuke it with Heat Wave. Timid Spec Swellow is doing over half to fully specially defensive Klefki, so it really can't switch in more than once. It does have Light Screen and Thunder Wave support for that, along with a possible Aqua Berry, but if Shady can get past that, Swellow just plows through the rest of Ultra's team. His Boomber switch-ins are very limited, Nihilego and Mega Venusaur being the only ones other than Klefki. Nihilego takes over half from HP ground, assuming he brings that, which, well, it would be smart. And Venusaur gets bodied by Hurricane. Even if he clicks Boomburst on the switch-ins, that's still a lot of damage. He can punish the switch-ins by getting hazards up early with one of his 4 rockers. Ultra also has some nice offensive pressure himself, especially with stuff like Koopa and Bound on his team. But if Shady can keep up the momentum and keep it in his favor, and if he can chip down those special tanks, I think Swellow can just kind of win. Our next matchup is Odds and the Memphis Bewares versus Archimish Brendan and the Marlboro Mudtails. Okay, so I wanted to go with Brendan in this matchup, but I just feel like Odds has the counters, which, looking at the other picks, is a pretty unpopular opinion. Because, most people picked Brendan to win the game. But here's my logic, okay? Let's take a peek at Brendan's team. He has a Zygarde 50. Odds has a Tapu Bulu. Sure, he can run Sludge Wave, but that's still a non-stab hit from a base 81 special attack stat. And assuming it's from a minus special attack nature, it's a 3-hit KO on AV Bulu. Brendan has a Cryogonal. Odds has a Heatran. Brendan is pretty much forced to run HP ground if he wants to touch it, and that's still a 3-hit KO even after rocks to a specially defensive variant, which he's probably going to bring because Brendan also has a Mega Gardevoir, and Heatran Quadresist Fairy, Resist Psychic. It's just a really good switch in general, and Gardevoir is also forced to bring HP ground. So going back to Cryogonal, the HP ground, the fact that it doesn't 3-hit KO, that basically forces Brendan to switch out, and Odds gets free rocks. And because I think of the weirdest scenarios humanly possible, imagine this. Brendan basically has to click HP grind in front of this Heatran every time, so Odds could easily make the aggressive switch into Mantine. Mantine reveals Yache Berry on the freeze dry, then blows Cryogonal back with Mirror Coat. Heck, it doesn't even have to be Yache Berry. Mantine is so absurdly bulky that a calm, non-spit F-invested variant can take a 4-time super effective stab freeze dry to the face. Just, not after rocks. And then it blows it back with Mirror Coat. Also, Odds has the best Pokemon ever in Mega Manectric, which can kinda tear through Brendan's team, seeing as how 2 of his best tanks are Mandibuzz and Vaporeon, and, yeah, they're both kind of weak to electric. Registeel can take an Overheat or a Flamethrower, but if Oz just clicks Volt Switch, he can get the momentum and go into something like Heatran or Gliscor. I will say, though, those are basically the best answers to Registeel, so I could see it tanking in the late game, and Brendan winning because Odds can't break it. Yeah, overall, I'd say that Odds has the answers to Brendan's team, more so than Brendan does for Odds' team. Brendan, you're my buddy, but I just feel like Odds has the matchup. Speaking of matchup, our next matchup is Caleb and the Kansas City Nidokings versus GarchompTheGod and the Lawrence Talonflames. I picked Caleb to win this game, and most of the other analysts agreed. Chose Caleb to win mostly because he has a Nidoking on his team. Now let's just take a quick peek at Garchomp's team here. Tapu Koko, Latios, Bisharp, Emboar, Ludicolo, Seismitoad, Xatu, Mega Gyarados, Garbodor, Buffalon, and Vivillon. Tell me, where is the Nidoking switch-in? Sludge Wave, Earth Power, and Ice Beam plow through the entire team. Seismitoad is the only thing that comes even close to being a switch-in, seeing as how a specially defensive variant can somehow take 2 Life Orb Earth Powers after Leftovers recovery. Mega Gyarados can be trained to take that hit as well, but that's a lot of defensive investment into a Pokemon that's meant to be offensive. On top of all of this, Caleb also has a Mega Altaria, which puts in a lot of work. After a couple of Dragon Dances, it can literally just win with Return and Earthquake. Coco drops. Latios drops unless it's Scarfed and outspeeds, because I think Scarf Latios outspeed. I didn't actually look at that though, but using my amazing knowledge of Pokemans, I'm going to infer that it would outspeed there. Bisharp drops. Emboar drops. Ludicolo drops. Seismitoad, physically defensive variants can take a return, but that would mean it gets 2-hit KO'd by Nidoking's Earth Power, so either way, drops. Xatu drops. Gyarados drops, but Garchomp can play around it and try to sweep, or he can play around the sweep with Gyarados' Intimidate prior to Mega Evolution. Garbodor drops. Unless it's hyper physically defensive, which I'm not sure. He might bring that, but he would have to chip that down just a little bit. Other than that, it just kind of dies. Bouffalant drops. Vivillon drops. In addition, Caleb has Skarmory to prevent a potential Gyarados sweep. He has Suicune for the Emboar, Latios, and Bisharp, and he has Jolteon and Nidoking to scare the Koko from clicking Thunderbolt. I don't see how Caleb can possibly lose this game. Alright, next game is Matt and the Montreal Melodics versus Top and the Rhode Island Rotoms. Once again, we were pretty split on this one, but I did choose Matt to win the game. The two of them have a pretty even matchup, so I do think the game could end up going either way, but there's one main reason why I picked Matt over Top. While his Excadrill Tyranitar Sandcore won't be able to put in much work against a team with Lando T, Porygon 2, and Alomomola, his Mega Ampharos can. Top's team is Lando T, Porygon 2, Alomomola, as I just said, Hexers, Togekiss, Darmanitan, Mega Sceptile, Hitmontop, Wobbuffet, Alolan Persian, and Electrode. So, where's the Mega Ampharos switching? If you said P2, you were correct, seeing as how it takes about half from a Focus Blast, and that's an inconsistent move to begin with. However, Matt can Toxic the P2 and put it on a timer, and if that happens, Ampharos can really start to put in work. Even when Toxic, P2 is probably still Top's best Mega Ampharos switch-in. Wobbuffet can do the job as well, I suppose, but it just doesn't have a reliable form sustain like P2 does. Either way, Matt can pretty freely click Volt Switch every time. Mold Breaker allows it to hit the Mega Sceptile, but that's not really a safe switch in anyway because of the potential Dragon Pulse. For the same reason, Top probably wouldn't want to send in Landorus in fear of HP Ice. If played well, Mega Ampharos can get the momentum for the team while also having a lot of potential damage output to keep certain Pokemon off the field. On the flip side, Top has a lot of threats himself, with Lando T, Haxorus, Togekiss, and Darmanitan being the most prominent. However, Matt has some checks to those. He has Tangrowth, which is a pretty good answer to Lando, assuming it doesn't have Supersonic Sky Strike or U-Turn, which, let's face it, those are both pretty common, but they aren't unbeatable. Florges and Tyranitar and Uxie can all potentially take hits from Haxorus, but if Matt makes the mistake of letting it set up a couple Dragon Dances, his checks will be severely limited, especially if Haxorus has Poison Jab and Low Kick. Matt has Excadrill for the Togekiss, which resists both stabs and it can't be Thunder Waved. But again, Drill doesn't have the best matchup this week, and Top would basically had a free switch into Alomomola or Lando anyway. Darmanitan is very scary for Matt's team, but he does have a way around it. If he can set up rocks and go into Uxie every time on the Darm, he's basically forced to click U-Turn and take extra rock damage every time he comes in. Couple that with Flare Blitz recoil, and it gets seriously chipped down, and it becomes very limited with what it can do. All in all, I think this match could go either way. However, I feel like Matt has the edge because he can more easily prep for Top's threats than Top can from like the Mega Ampharos, in addition to Matt's other threats. So yeah, I feel like that game could go either way. It's going to be really interesting to see who wins. Shifting over to the Sun Conference, our next matchup is Ash Lee and the Houston Hardens versus Drew and the Seattle Scizors. Now, Pick Ems are usually just picking the better player, not so much the better matchup. This is my first season working with the IBL, so up until now, I've just been looking at matchup alone. However, I've been playing with Drew for, I think, literally years now, and I know that he's a fantastic player. 4-time UPA finalist, Season 5 champion. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I didn't even look at the matchup before I picked him to win this game. So let's do that now, shall we? Ash has a Celesteela, and Drew's team doesn't really like that. Drew doesn't have an electric type, so he's probably gonna have to rely on Salazzle and maybe Mew to deal with that thing. Actually, not having an electric type is really going to hurt Drew, because Slowking is a very good switch into Salazzle. Drew's team is solid overall, but I would recommend that he fix that and pick up an electric type. That would probably be a good idea. I really don't have a lot to say about this matchup for, well, previously stated reasons. I picked Drew to win before I even looked at the teams. I just know that Drew's a really good player, and I think he can win this game even against a Celesteela. Next matchup, we've got Kurt and the Portage Herdiers versus Turk and the Chicago Cub Chews. Before the season started, I was in a call with Drew, and he told me that Kurt is one of the best players in the entire IBL. Now, I've seen Kurt play one time ever, and he lost in the first round of a tournament to a Z Fortress team. which was just kind of funny. But for real, he got the crap hacks out of him in that game, so I can't judge his skill from seeing that alone. So I decided to stay neutral here and look at matchup alone. And boy, the other analysts must have thought I was crazy, but I call him how I see him. Right off the bat, I love both teams. Turk has Mega Lopunny, Manaphy, Rotom-Wash, Sylveon, Scizor, Metagross, Amoonguss, and Braviary. In the IBL, where the teams seem pretty subpar overall, I think the team is awesome. His speed tiers aren't the greatest, since he has nothing between 100 and 135, but I just love the Pokemon on his team. Kurt also has an awesome team. He's got Mega Kangaskhan. I don't know if that has Seismic Toss or not. I hope not, because that would be way too broken. He's got Scolipede, Latias, Blastoise, Rotom Heat, Rabombi, which now gets webs, Trevenant, Steelix, Honchkrow, and the best Pokemon of all time, Togedemaru. There's a reason I picked Turk to win, though. Take another look at Kurt's team and tell me, where's the Mega Lopunny switch in? Now tell me, what can 1v1 a Manaphy after a Z-Rain Dance? Then tell me, what happens if Steelix gets weakened and Braviary and Scizor are still around? Basically, if Turk can keep up the offensive pressure, I think he can just kind of win. On the flip side, Kurt does have Scolipede Speed Pass into Mega Kang, which is, I'm assuming that's allowed. I'm just gonna assume that Speed Pass is allowed in this league, I don't know. Probably should have looked that up beforehand, but I'm not smart, we'll roll with it. Where was I? Something about Scolipede. Yeah, right. Scolipede can Speed Pass into Mega Kang, which is terrifying for Turk's team. Like, Mega Lopunny and Metagross can 1v1 Kangaskhan normally, but that's about it. After the speed boost, it's really just Metagross, because Scizor is afraid of the Fire Punch. I mean, Metagross, I haven't run the calcs, but I'm assuming it could live in Earthquake. But, maybe not after a Power-Up Punch boost. But yeah, that alone is terrifying. Turk does have Sylveon as a reliable Latias check, but to be honest, I really don't see much for Togedemaru. Lopunny can't click High Jump Kick and Furious Spiky Shield, or the Togedemaru could just run Chople Berry and Nuzzle. Manaphy doesn't want to take a Zing Zap, Sylveon doesn't want to take an Iron Head, Scizor and Metagross wouldn't appreciate getting Nuzzled, Braviary definitely ain't an answer. Basically, all he has for Togedemaru is Amoonguss and Rotom, which is actually awesome. I really hope Togedemaru can put in work. Except, you know, I picked Turk to win, because I feel like he has the better matchup, but we'll see if Kurt proves what Drew told me about him being one of the best players in the IBL. Either way, I look forward to seeing the game, even though it already happened, and as an IBL analyst, I have access to the replay. I should totally watch that. Yeah, that would be smart. Anyway, though, moving on to our next matchup, we have DarudeLeafStorm and the Aberdeen Elves versus FlameHorizon and the Minnesota Monfernos. I picked Darude to win this game, and that's partially because I don't think there's enough offensive pressure from Flame's team. Like, there's some stuff there. Like, he's got Jirachi, Mega Blastoise, Nidoqueen, Kyurem, but no real sweepers. His fastest Pokemon is Frostlass at base 110, and after that, it's Jirachi and Zapdos at base 100. If he wants to sweep, he would have to run something like Scarf Kyurem or Scarf Rachi, both of which are awesome sets, but if that's all you have for a cleaner at the end of the game, you might want to make some transactions, pick up something like Weavile, or Torn-T, or Alakazam, something to help with the speed tiers and also provide some nice offensive pressure. Weavile would be a little redundant, because he's got a couple of ice types already. Frostlass basically does the same thing, except just, like, not nearly as well, and also has Taunt, Spikes, Thunder Wave support options. Yeah, not nearly as well on the offensive side. Like, from an offensive perspective, Weavile is a million times better than Frostlass, but having them both on the same team would just be redundant. I really like the idea of adding Torn-T to this team, though, especially considering he only has one ground immunity, and his favorite move to spam is immune by ground types. That's Zapdos. Anyway, though, back to the matchup. Because of Flame's lack of sweepers and his not great speed tiers, DD Dragonite can wreak havoc on the team. The only thing that can outspeed it at +1 is Scarfers, and Scarf Kyurem would probably be the scariest thing for it to deal with. But, like, Darude has Mega Scizor, which can just come in, take an Ice Beam like a champion, threaten Kyurem out with Bullet Punch. Heck, it can just kind of click a U-turn on the switch, since Scarf Kyurem would basically have to switch out anyway. Moreover, Sneasel can put in a ton of work against this team. Everything gets blown back, except for maybe Mega Blastoise and Aromatisse, but if they get chipped down, Sneasel just puts in a ton of work and could possibly sweep in the late game. One way or another, I feel like Darude just has the better matchup, and the better team will probably come out on top. Unless, Flame can prove that his team is yearly god tier, which, you never know, maybe he has something up his sleeve. And finally, our last matchup for Week 1 is Wmar and the Miami Infernapes versus NoivernNation and the Las Vegas Galators. Looking at the teams, NoivernNation has no safe switch in for the Kyurem Black, but to be fair, do they even exist? I mean, I suppose Mesprit could do a decent job at taking hits, seeing as how it has some fine natural bulk, and it doesn't take super effective damage from either of Kyurem's stabs. But, that's really his best bet. Also, Kyurem can't really hit it for super. Yeah, that's really his best bet. Also, he has no flying resist. His electric type is Galvantula, and his steel type is Cobalion. And his fastest Pokemon is base 115. Yeah, Mega Pidgeot just kind of wins this game from Team Preview. That honestly just kind of sums up the entire matchup. I mean, I guess Mega Absol and Primarina could be scary, but stuff like Garchomp and Fernape, Cobalion, stuff that's usually awesome, just gets walled by Cresselia. And Fernape can click U-turn, that's about it. Mega Absol can at least Sucker Punch the Pidgeot and do about half, but then it just drops to Hurricane. Well, that was quite the anticlimactic way to end this video. Unfortunately, the entire Pick Em team wasn't able to record this, but hopefully Ojama, EasyBake, and I will be able to schedule better for Week 2 Pick Ems. We might just do 2 at a time, though. That's the thing Brendan suggested, since we were having trouble scheduling in the first place. Whatever. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Ben, but I also go by ShinySableye17. My links will be in the description, probably, assuming Brendan puts them there. Brendan, can you do me a solid and put them there? Thanks. And I'll see you guys next time.